Hey friend, welcome back to the Sage Audio channel. Today we'll be counting down our pick for the top 10 free compression plugins. We'll be showcasing their functionality, as well as listening to how they sound when they're being used. Lastly, we'll be talking about how to best use them, so stick around for the full video. But first, if this is a topic that you find interesting, I'd highly recommend looking into the blog post that's associated with this video. You can find the link for that in the description box below. Also, if you're an artist, engineer, or producer and you have a mix that you need mastered, you can send it to us at sageaudio.com. We'll master it for you and send you a free mastered sample of it. All you have to do is set up the Short account, upload the song, and we can do the rest. Number 10, SlamPup Beat Skills. Now, despite its somewhat goofy and novel design, the SlamPup by Beat Skills is a powerful and useful plugin best suited for parallel compression. Its 5 functions include input, bark, bite, wet and dry, and output. These 5 functions offer a surprising amount of flexibility and introduce complex tonality. The bark function works as a saturation in which compression is employed and harmonics are slowly generated. The bite function employs upward compression and greatly amplifies the overall level of the signal. This bite function also introduces harmonic generation. Now, by blending these 2 functions together, you can compress and saturate the signal in a complex and significant manner. Now, this balances nicely with the wet-dry function, which keeps the effects from becoming extreme and distracting. Let's take a listen. Number 9, Yalla by Analog Obsession. Yalla by Analog Obsession is a seemingly simplistic compressor. At first glance, the functionality seems straightforward enough. However, after experimenting with this plugin, you'll notice how quirky it is. Now, this quirkiness is offset by how great the plugin sounds, but it's worth noting some of the oddities nonetheless. Its 6 functions include volume, attenuation, release, threshold, power or bypass, and oversampling. The strangeness of this plugin comes from these first 2 functions. Now, whereas one would think that volume would be an input or maybe makeup gain, it is an input that doesn't increase the amplitude of the signal, but instead increases the amount of signal being fed into the compressor. Now, it's a little difficult to explain, but most simply put, it increases the amount of compression occurring without increasing the signal's gain in any way, somewhat similar to a ratio. The attenuation function, although seemingly meant to control the amount of attenuation, is makeup gain. Now, release and threshold work as expected, with the release function ranging from a very quick to very slow setting, and the threshold behaving as a typical threshold would. Power is simply a bypass function, whereas oversampling introduces filtering to alleviate any aliasing and intermodulation distortion. What's really special about this plugin is that the more you compress, the more harmonics get added into the signal. Now, also the release affects the amplitude of the harmonics generated, with a quick release resulting in the loudest harmonics and a slow release resulting in the quietest. So let's take a listen to it. Number 8, Clip Shifter by LVC Audio. The Clip Shifter is different than most compression or limiting plugins. Whereas most compression plugins or plugins in general really attempt to avoid clipping distortion, Clip Shifter utilizes it as a creative tool. Now, no matter what you do with Clip Shifter, if you're affecting the signal in any way, you're causing clipping. Although this seems to go against how audio should be processed, the clipping generated by this compressor can come in handy or be used creatively. The compression-esque functions of this plugin include initial, which serves almost like a threshold, end, which serves more like a ratio, and attack and release. The initial function determines the point at which the compressor will begin to clip the signal, whereas the end function determines the final amplitude of the clip signal. Now, although this plugin is a bit unorthodox, it can be thought of as a compressor that, instead of simply attenuating the signal, attenuates the signal with clipping distortion. With that said, the greater the attenuation, the greater the amplitude of the distortion. This distortion can be controlled with functions like clip shape and harmonics, both of which determine what harmonics are generated and to what extent. Here's a sample. Number 7, Couture by Auburn Sounds. Another unique entry on this list, Couture by Auburn Sounds offers a way to affect the ADSR of a signal. Now, typically, compressors work when the amplitude of the signal reaches a certain point, but the Couture can amplify or attenuate aspects of the signal regardless of that signal's amplitude. Now, the plugin includes multiple functions that you can use to affect how the transients are detected and how they're affected. Additionally, a wet dry function allows you to blend this effect in with your signal. Now, when you're using the transient shaping functions, you can either compress the transient and amplify the sustain and release of the signal, or you can amplify the transient and compress the sustain and release. Let's take a listen. Number 6, DC1A by Klanghelm. One of the simpler plugins on this list, the DC1A by Klanghelm only utilizes 2 rotaries, or at least that's how it appears at first. Now, it is true that you can use this plugin in its most simple form, that is increasing the input to cause compression, but you can also create some really nuanced effects using its additional functionality. Deep, relaxed, dual mono, and negative buttons at the bottom can be used to significantly affect the sound of your compression. The deep function introduces a high-pass filter to alleviate the effect of pumping. Relax changes the compression detection from peak to RMS. Dual mono changes the input from stereo to 2 independent compressions that treat the left and right channels independently. And negative inverts the ratio, causing expansion. Additionally, a wet-dry mix function can be found below the metering. This allows for quick parallel compression functionality. Let's take a listen. Number 5 is Verymoon by Analog Obsession. Verymoon is similar to the other Analog Obsession compression listed earlier, but includes additional functionality and more intricate harmonic generation. First off, this compressor incorporates a variable release function offering 6 settings. Settings 1 to 4 correspond to times ranging from 0.3 to 5 seconds, while settings 5 and 6 are dependent upon the incoming signal. The AC threshold can be thought of as a typical threshold, whereas the input attenuation can be thought more of as a ratio. The greater the input attenuation function, the more the compressor will compress if the signal is breaching the threshold. The DC threshold's purpose is less obvious, as it doesn't affect the signal in any direct manner. It only seems to affect the signal once significant compression is already applied. Like the other Analog Obsession plugin on this list, the Verymoon employs harmonic generation that increases with the amount of compression that's being used. This way, you not only compress your signal, you increase its complexity and fullness with mild to moderate distortion. Let's take a listen. Number 4 is Loudmax by Thomas Munt. Loudmax by Thomas Munt is, simply put, a great plugin. It's an incredibly close remake to the popular Waves L1 and L2 limiters, both in functionality and clean tonality. Now, what makes this plugin so useful is how cleanly it affects a signal. Just like the L1 and L2, the Loudmax plugin doesn't generate any harmonics, nor does it cause any unwanted modulation or distortion, even at significant compression levels. This makes it a great option for mastering and for any compression in which you want to transparently compress your signal. The Loudmax only employs 3 functions: threshold, output, and link. The threshold determines when compression begins, and the output determines the output level of the signal. Link causes these functions to work at the same peak dB level. The Loudmax also uses an auto gain function that knacks whenever the threshold is lowered. That said, pulling down on the threshold increases the overall loudness and amplitude of the signal. Now, if you'd like to compress an instrument or mix without increasing the amplitude, simply link the threshold and output and decrease both simultaneously. Number 3, Kotelnikov Mastering Compressor, Tokyo Dawn Labs. This compressor offers mostly clean compression and provides the functionality needed to fine-tune your attenuation. The compressor houses the typical functions, but also includes some very important settings, allowing for nuanced compression. These functions include low-frequency relax, stereo sensitivity, distinct peak and RMS release, and variable channel-based compression. The low-frequency relax setting is a high-pass filter that reduces the effect of pumping. Stereo sensitivity alters how receptive the compressor is to signal located outside of the mid-image. Distinct peak and RMS releases allow you to alter the release time and in turn the compression timbre of signal measured by peak and RMS measurements. And variable control-based compression allows you to switch your compression from typical stereo to independent channels or sums like left, right, mono, sum, or difference. The compressor also introduces subtle harmonic generation to create a fuller sounding master. Let's take a listen. Number 2, Rough Rider 3 by Audio Damage. Rough Rider 3 is an easy-to-understand yet advanced compression plugin that allows for sidechain routing. The clean interface and intuitive metering makes it easy to understand how you're affecting your signal, resulting in more intentional processing. Now, although the Rough Rider 3 looks as if it cleanly compresses your signal, it does introduce harmonics that result in a fuller mix or master. The primary reason to use this plugin, as opposed to some of the other free compressors listed here, is for the sidechain functionality. This means that you can perform some advanced compression techniques with this plugin in a way that most other plugins don't allow for. Here's a sample. Number 1, Frontier by D16 Audio Group Software. Now, of all the other plugins on this list, Frontier by D16 Audio Group was the most enjoyable to use, aesthetically pleasing, and useful plugin that I came across. Now, while all of the other plugins took some tweaking to result in an enhanced sound, the Frontier provided this almost instantly. Frontier can be compared to number 4 on this list, the LoudMax plugin, except with additional functionality that augments its sound and its practicality. A soft clip feature employs subtle harmonic generation when reaching 0 dB. The control input feature allows you to process your signal as a stereo, left, or right channel. 3 release settings provide some control over an algorithmic and input-determined release time. And lastly, the auto makeup gain setting increases the overall amplitude of your signal while setting the threshold for your compression. All in all, this plugin sounds fantastic and allows you the option of clean or distortion-based compression. This makes it a great choice for both individual instrument and full mix compression and limiting. Let's take a listen. So these are our picks for the top 10 free compression plugins, but what do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, again, definitely check out the blog post where you can find a lot more information on this topic and others like it. There's a link in the description box below. Also, if you're an artist or an engineer, send us one of your mixes at sageaudio.com. We'll master it for you and send you a free mastered sample. All you got to do is set up this account, upload the song, and we'll do the rest. But thank you so much for watching. We really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and share this video with your friends. This way we know if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Also, you can subscribe to the channel. We release new videos every week, and subscribing is the best way to stay up to date. There's a comment section where you can leave your thoughts on this video or a suggestion for a future video. And again, if you're an artist or an engineer and you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us at sageaudio.com. We'll master it for you and send you a free mastered sample. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.